the horrors of war descended on the Ardennes. 75 years ago today, the German Wehrmacht commenced one of the last offensives of the Second World War, a brutal battle in a war that had long since been lost. Majesty, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I thank you for the invitation to join you today in commemoration. I stand before you and before all Belgians humbly and gratefully in my role as President of the Federal Republic of Germany. I'm aware that my speaking here today is not something to be taken for granted. Here in Bastogne, here in Belgium, which was invaded by Germans twice in the last century. The German-British publicist Sebastian Haffner described the Ardennes offensive as an insane enterprise from a military point of view. It brought with it interminable suffering, destruction, and death. We Germans know about the suffering. We know about the pain. We know that many of you still wrestle with it today. Your fathers and grandfathers died in the battle or are missing. Your mothers and grandmothers had to endure starvation and destruction. Defenseless civilians were killed. The suffering is not something that only happened in the past. It continues to affect your families today. That is why it is so important for us to remember and for us to engage in joint acts of remembrance and commemoration. Ladies and gentlemen, with sorrow, I pay tribute to the victims from all nations. Those who died were victims of hatred, delusion, and destructive fury, which originated from my country. Yet on this day, I'm also filled with a profound sense of gratitude. Your country, Majesty, reached out its hand to us across the graves from 2 world wars. Belgium gave us the gift of its willingness for reconciliation. You opened the door for us to be part of a peaceful Europe. For that, we Germans are deeply grateful. Your Highness Grand Duke Henri, we are also grateful to your country, Luxembourg, which suffered so severely as a consequence of these battles and the years of occupation. You too stretched out your hand to us in reconciliation. Because of this, and only because of this, we were able to jointly lay the foundation for a united, peaceful Europe. Because of this, and only because of this, former enemies have become good neighbors. More than that, they have become friends. Friends who now enjoy close political, cultural, economic, and military ties. Here in Belgium is where Europe heart beats. Here in Belgium, the spirit of Europe is alive. Here the idea of Europe is alive, and here it is being lived out. Hier in België leeft de Europese geest. Hier leeft de Europese idee en hier wordt deze geleefd. Ici en Belgique, l'esprit européen vit. Ici l'idée européenne vit et est vécue. That is a promise for us and for our future. On this day, we Germans would also like to thank the United States of America. The American armed forces, together with their allies, liberated Europe, and they also liberated Germany. We would like to thank you, the veterans, who put their lives on the line for the cause of liberation. We remain deeply indebted by this America, which accompanied and supported the democratic rebirth of Germany despite the war and the Shoah. A united, peaceful Europe is the lesson we Europeans have learned from nationalist and racist extremism, from the war and from destruction. Please, let's not forget that, particularly in these days when the allure of nationalism and ethnocentric thinking is once again increasing. Today, we are the ones who together bear the responsibility for our united Europe. For Germany, which unleashed the last major war on European soil, this is a special and lasting responsibility. I want to say to all of you Belgians, people of Luxembourg, Poles, Americans, Canadians, the British, the French and the Dutch, in my role as German President, we Germans are aware of our responsibility. We embrace that responsibility and we will pass it on. The fact that today we are jointly engaging in this act of commemoration gives me hope. The path of reconciliation gives us hope. Hope that in the future our continent will continue to be united in peace and freedom. Hope that together we can fight against new forms of resentment, racial hatred and nationalism in the interests of democracy and freedom. Hope that we will continue to pursue our common path as good neighbors, as friends, as Europeans. Thank you.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, dear guests, I invite His Excellency Mr. Esper to deliver his speech.
Good morning. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to help commemorate the 75th anniversary of what British Prime Minister Winston Churchill characterized as, quote, undoubtedly the greatest American battle of the war. I want to especially thank our World War II veterans who are here with us today. Thank you all. It is because of their sacrifices during some of the most challenging times the world has ever seen that we are able to live in freedom and prosperity today. On a bitterly cold morning, 75 years ago, the snow-covered Ardennes forest shook from the artillery bombardment that marked Hitler's final attempt to push back Allied forces from Germany's border. United States troops, fatigued from months of continuous combat, were at first unable to slow the surprise offensive. And to make matters worse, the Allies' air advantage was negated by the heavy cloud cover and thick fog that shrouded the attack, much like we see today. The Nazis' rapid penetration and the corresponding bulge in the battle lines that ensued threatened to divide the Allied forces and possibly turn the tide of war. Despite taking heavy casualties and with little resupply, the Americans were able to slow the enemy's assault short of the all-important Meuse River crossings. Reinforcements rushed to the Bulge to fill gaps in the line and to relieve units that had been badly mauled by panzer units that spearheaded the attack. All across the battlefield, American soldiers, often isolated and unaware of the overall situation, banded together to take on the advancing armor columns and to stall the Nazi advance. And here, at this strategic crossroads, at this place in Bastogne, the 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles, completely besieged by German forces on all sides, carried out one of the most heroic defenses ever recorded in history. Outnumbered nearly 5-1, lacking cold weather gear and short on food and ammunition and medical supplies, the American paratroopers refused to give up. Their fearlessness was epitomized by the legendary response provided by Brigadier General McAuliffe when the Germans demanded he surrender. His reply was one simple word: nuts. Over many days, the American troops went on to beat back repeated attacks from all directions. News of their fierce defense quickly spread, boosting the morale of Allied forces all along the Western Front. Within days, reinforcements from the south would break through the German flank and reopen the supply lines to Bastogne. There is much to be learned from this battle, which is remembered as one of the greatest in American history. But more than anything, the victory of the Battle of the Bulge is a testament to the fortitude and heroism of the American soldier. For nearly 6 weeks, more than 500,000 troops took part in the intense efforts to preserve the incredible gains that had been achieved over the prior 6 months since the Allies' invasion of Normandy. The Americans who fought here were led by some of our nation's most respected military leaders of the time, but it was ultimately the intrepid and indomitable spirit of the American soldier that brought victory. Today, the world remembers the sacrifices of the brave patriots who faced death and unimaginable adversity on this field of battle. More than 19,000 Americans laid down their lives in this gallant stand against tyranny. Their efforts not only defended America, but also ensured that the peoples of Europe would be free again. We'll be forever grateful for the extraordinary service of our greatest generation, whose legacy we preserve through this ceremony and others like it. The United States has a proud history of standing up for our friends and allies around the world in face of evil and oppression. We have long believed that our nation's values, respect for sovereignty and independence, adherence to international rules and norms, and the defense of individual liberty and human rights are worth fighting for. We have done so many times in the short history of our republic. My generation's calling was the Gulf War in 1991, where I was honored to serve in combat as a Screaming Eagle. And that famed division once again faced a rendezvous with destiny. But the gold standard is clearly the greatest generation. In World War II, America was willing to commit everything we had to preserve freedom and protect our way of life. And on this ground, where the outcome of the Battle of the Bulge hung in the balance, American troops fought and forged an incredible victory that assured Hitler's defeat. We must never forget the grave and global dangers of that era, which threatened to completely alter our way of life and the course of human history. We must never forget how the free world joined together in a united effort to ensure good triumphed over evil. And we must never forget this ever-famous American battle and the men who bravely endured the most trying conditions to achieve victory. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for commemorating this historic 75th anniversary with us today. May God bless our troops, may God bless our peoples, and may God bless our nations. And may the legacy created by this victory guide us for generations to come. Thank you.
Together, all heads of state and high representatives will now lay a wreath in memory of the fallen ones. This moment will be followed by a minute of silence and the last post. Sire, Majesté, Altesse Royale, Excellences, chers invités, Monsieur Benoît Lutjen, bourgmestre de Bastogne, est invité à prendre la parole.
May the world never again experience such a Christmas night, slaughtered by weapons far from your children, wives, and mothers. There is no greater cruelty. Ravir un fils à sa mère, un mari à son épouse et un père à ses enfants, est-ce digne d'un être humain? La vie ne peut être donnée et acceptée que pour s'aimer et se respecter. Life can only be given and accepted through love and respect. I am certain that out of these wounds, blood and death, a universal brotherhood will emerge. Dear friends, dear veterans, have you ever imagined that a German soldier could have written such lines during Christmas 1944? The force of this message was a precursor to a future reconciliation and the construction of Europe. Dear veterans, you were 20. They say it's the best time of life, but for you, in the horror of these engagements, it was a time of survival. Dear friends, dear veterans, you are heroes. You were heroes when you fought in the cold, fog, and snow 75 years ago. And heroes, you have remained in our hearts through your regular visits in solidarity to places in our region where your brothers in arms were killed. Time has not changed you. You are always there, valiant, at your stations. Bastogne and the entire population of our region will never forget your courage and your sacrifice. Our gratitude is unswerving and sincere. Of the course of your visit here, you have been made able to see this for yourselves. Tens of thousands of Americans have followed in your footsteps. Links have been forged between your compatriots and our population. These exchanges have led to shared projects. During this battle, I bet you could never ever imagine that we would write a long and beautiful history together. Dear guests, between 1941 and 1946, Malcolm Marsh wrote several pages about US Army history. During the Battle of the Bulge, he distinguished himself in the northern shoulder. He remembers being in a rifle pit in snow half a meter deep. After the battle, Malcolm continued on to Cologne. He received several military honors. Our friend fought under the flag of freedom and democracy. Malcolm, you were one of our liberators, one of them. You and your brothers in arms will always be our heroes. Bastogne n'oubliera jamais votre sacrifice, jamais. Vous êtes nos libérateurs et vous resterez à jamais nos héros. It's a great honor and a great emotion to welcome you here, Malcolm, after all the moments spent together this weekend. Dear guests, please welcome Mr. Malcolm Buck Marsh. Thank you very much. To applause.
Great to be here, but I'm glad I'm not digging a foxhole. I joined the 136th Infantry Regiment just prior to Christmas during the Bulge, and was fortunate to make it all the way through. Had some battles I'll talk about in a minute, but first I'd like to thank the government of Belgium, Luxembourg, and the staff of the U.S. Embassy, from all of us vets that are here for this great occasion. I never dreamed that I'd be back in Belgium on the anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge. It's just very special, and it's heartwarming to see the receptions that we're getting. It's very, very nice for us. During the Bulge, I visited many places, many houses that we were welcomed in during the snow. But all of this brings back fond memories, some fond and some not so fond. One of the most fond recollections of the Bulge was my comrade and I was standing guard at a small village. I think it was Sart, maybe Grand Sart. And it was in blizzard conditions. We were posted right at the edge of the city limits. And it's about to freeze. And suddenly the house where the rest of our troops were staying, a Belgian lady with a shawl on came out and had 2 mugs of hot chicken soup for each of us. Best meal I've had, I guess, ever. It was so thoughtful of her to get there to try to keep us warm. The not so fond memories, soon after I arrived, we were notified that a 4-man reconnaissance platoon patrol was going to go out that night. And I was fortunate enough to be chosen as one of those 4. We went up to battalion headquarters and were briefed. We were to go out by our main line of resistance. At 500 yards, we encounter a sunken road. Get in this sunken road, proceed about 1,000 yards, come to an iron gate, open that gate, go up a hill and just sit and listen and see if you could determine what the Germans were doing or where they were. Some wonderful Belgian ladies had donated to our rear echelon white sheets. We had no camouflage at all, and the Germans had wonderful white camouflage uniforms. Our our rear echelon took those sheets, sewed a hood on it for our head, ties around each arm and our legs, and one big one around our waist. The person that was helping me with mine kept smiling. And I told him, I said, I don't know why you're smiling. This is fairly serious business. We're going behind the German lines and see what's happening. And he said, well, look behind you. And I did. And it must have been 6 feet of that sheet trailing me. I looked like a bride coming down the aisle with a long train. But nevertheless, we got up to battalion headquarters. They told us to take everything out of our pockets, nothing on but our dog tags. I took an old knife out that I treasured and put it, among other things, on the table. Of course, we had our weapons, and so we were ready to go. We did as told. We got out past the main line of resistance. There probably was 16, 18 inches of snow at that time, and encountered this sunken road. The snow had blown in there, and it was very hard to walk. But the 4 of us were going up the road toward the Iron Gate. I guess we got about halfway, and we heard this noise approaching us. It was a German combat patrol knocking icicles off of the road, the branches, and hill a little bit. It burned at this height above us. So the 4 of us just melted down in the snow with those bed sheets on. Their patrol went on by us and encountered our main line of resistance, and a battle was fought. While they were doing that, we went a little farther and got out of that sunken road and sat there. The Germans took a pretty bad beating, but we could see them coming back. We had found a little well house or something, a stone house, a little one. We were behind it, but we could see them. They were talking loud, carrying their wounded, carrying their dead. They hardly ever left any of their people dead or alive, wounded, or what, unless they got all of them out. So when they went by, we were anxious to get back, but our patrol leader said, let's just wait about 10 more minutes to make sure they all gone. So we waited, and then we went on back, and much to the surprise of the battalion headquarters guy, they didn't think we would ever get back. We were backtracking a little. When we came to our line, our main line of resistance, we were challenged, and the squad leader asked me my name, and I told him loud enough to be heard for a half a mile. We wanted to identify ourselves. We got past that, went on back, talked to the people that questioned us about what we saw, and they saw more than we did as far as action was concerned. But anyhow, when I got back, I was able to put that old knife back in my pocket, and that was a good feeling. I'd like to say something here that I think is appropriate for the situation we're facing. What I would like for all of us to do every day, and every week, and every month, pray for world peace. Thank you.
December 1944. Battle. The odds don't look good. The future is bleak. Some men die, others resist. Hidden in the undergrowth, the enemy is ready to leap. He's going all out. His game is dark, like terror. The Ardennes knows, gripped by winter, imperial, killer, the cold is its blood. The cold erases, slays men, reduces them to a mere breath, a deadly patience. It is the enemy. No matter where you came from, the cold becomes your homeland and numbs you. It makes you forget. It does not forget you. Guns are silenced, shut down, icy. This is not a game. It's a battle. You will always remember those statues of men stuck to the ground, those ghostly fogs, those roaring cannons, that race for fuel, those civilians in disarray, that snow, and that snow again. You're lucky. The cold hasn't defeated you. You were not in the enemy's sights. The harsh Ardennes did not puncture your skin. The war machine did not sacrifice your King of Hearts, your deck of aces. You're a soldier. You will remember always. The comrades, the others, fallen or frozen, will be your tears and your desolation. You owe them candles, tons of candles. This fight will not have been in vain. The enemy is out of the game. Peace wins the day. You made it out. You were not alone.
Close your eyes, have no fear. The monster's gone, he's on the run, and your dad is here. Beautiful, 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 beautiful boy. Beautiful, 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 beautiful boy. Before you go to sleep, say a little prayer. Every day in every way, it's getting better and better. Beautiful, 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 beautiful boy. Beautiful, 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 beautiful boy. Out on the ocean, the ships sail away. I can hardly wait to see you come of age. I guess we'll just have to be patient, 'cause it's a long way to go and a hard road to hoe. A long way to go, but in the meantime, before my hand. Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Before you go to sleep, say a little prayer. Every day, in every way, it's getting better, better, better. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. You're my beautiful, 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 beautiful.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the anthems. vous remercions d'avoir assisté à cette cérémonie particulièrement émouvante. Veuillez rester assis tandis que Leur Majesté le Roi et la Reine, les chefs d'État et les hauts représentants se rendent d'abord au musée. Ils seront suivis par les vétérans. We danken u om deel te nemen aan deze